some of you have a lot of experience in this area, others may not, in leadership development, learning, and teaching. Giving you a few suggested resources, some of my favorites that you can go to afterwards. And so hopefully it gets you thinking and motivated to even learn more, and to reflect on yourself and your leadership skills, or and the leaders in your organization and how you can influence them. Now, a lot of you have already done this type of exercise, I'm positive, given your fields, but it's so good that to get started on a leadership program, that I'm going to start with it. To think of a leader right now, get one in your head, that you've experienced as your best leader in your life. It doesn't have to be necessarily work, it could be in another organization. If you can't think of one for some reason, you can always think of a coach or a political figure, or somebody in your head that you think is a really good leader. And now think about what leadership characteristics impress you about this person, and jot it down. Just remember, if you get one. What makes them a good leader? Why do they stand out to you? Think also about a time when you were at your personal best, and you feel like you were an extra effective leader of others in some way. It might be as a parent, it might be as a coach, or a member of a volunteer organization, or actually your jobs at work. Think of what characteristics you demonstrated at that time. Please jot down one or two. A little faster than I might normally, but hopefully at least you all have one or two examples in there. Is anybody willing to share what they came up with for these? Any key characteristics?
Yeah, so I had a vice president. We were combining two businesses together, and he came from the Charlotte, North Carolina office, and he was upfront and honest from the beginning. So honestly, he was willing to help and he was willing to listen.
Great.
And through the tough transition of combining these two companies together, and ultimately shutting down the division I was in. But I still respected him. He had a job to do, and he was, like I said, he was just upfront and honest, and honesty, and willing to help and communicate three key things, especially in a type of environment like that.
It's so key, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the Leadership Challenge by Kouzes and Posner. It's my favorite all-time leadership book. It gives you basic principles about it everybody can relate to, and it's very research-based. Thousands and thousands of leaders at companies were interviewed, and people around them and so forth. Globally, honesty was the number one important thing. The whole credibility, honesty.
Yeah, once you lose it, it's hard to get it back if ever.
My mentor, Philip Ruines, was a architect photographer. I worked for him for 3 years, and he had such high expectations for quality from me and from the work that he did and his presentation and the work that we did and delivered to our clients, that it really instilled on me this essence of quality in everything that you do, and I've always tried to carry that through in everything I've done since. So that was a very sort of powerful thing that he had taught me, and I hadn't experienced that before in any other job or position. Sort of, and people were like, yeah, obviously it was important, but it was also like do the best you can possibly do.
Not just do good,
Yeah,
do
not
great.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Talk a little about that later too, that's good. Anybody, one more person want to share?
I can. I think the best leader I've had was when I used to work for Northrop Grumman, because that was actually my first opportunity at real supply chain management, and they molded me. They were engaged in my career, told me what I needed to do and focus on, and that also actually allowed me to be to go a little more above and beyond. Seeking the challenges. Never let me sit dormant. Always challenged me. And then, as far as their ability and what makes them a good leader was the fact that he formulated an opinion about me and my work ethic and the actual work I was producing based on seeing it and firsthand experience, instead of just looking at me as a woman and a woman of color, which really didn't exist at Northrop Grumman at the time. It might not now, I don't know, but to be such a large company, it's not as diverse as where you would go to the headquarters in Baltimore. And then a time where I felt like I was at my personal best is when I actually supported one of those programs for Ocean Springs, which was a small hybrid office they tend to think that they don't get a lot of support from a corporate office, because corporate just wants the visibility to see the revenue that you're going to bring in, and it sometimes is not value added, and I was able to allow them to know that they could trust me. I was there to support them 100%. And that worked out. That allowed actually the project to be successful, and I guess the characteristics I showed for that was taking ownership and actually including all of the stakeholders and allowing them to know that each of us had our own niche specialty that brought flavor to the group and made us successful.
We all bring our strengths.
Yeah. Yep.
Great. Good example. Whenever I do this exercise or I've seen it done, what's one thing that's really interesting is that most of what comes out, you had quality, which kind of crosses both lines. It's kind of got at the great versus good factor, but you get the soft skills, right? You get the honesty, things like that, the communications, mostly when you go around a room, and yet in reality, right? In a lot of organizations, you find that what do people prioritize? Budgeting, getting operations done, getting things produced, getting those bottles designed, and not really the leadership, not so much the people. And it's really great that you guys are here to learn about that piece, that you are prioritizing it. And so throughout today, think about how you personally, or the day, the last 40 minutes, could apply the characteristics in your work with others, or how you can help other leaders in your organization do the same. These are some of my favorites. Again, the leadership challenge, and I'm going to touch on these, but spend the most time on leadership challenge today. Who's read that? Who's familiar with it? I used it when I was at World Strides, Student Educational Travel Company. I used it at UVA, where you had all walks of life. You had doctors and you had professors, and some professors in their classes, they kind of had their own programs too. And you had facilities people and finance people, and all of them could relate. So that's one reason it's my favorite. And it really hits on all the important things in a nice way, with lots of examples. And then Dare to Lead, who's familiar with Brene Brown? She's great. And a lot of her focus is like on vulnerability, really being a real person and not just acting like you're the boss. And then Good to Great. Jim Collins is another classic good one. And if we have time at the end, I'd love to hear any other recommendations some of you have, but there are other experts in here. Kouzes and Posner's 5 practices of exemplary leadership. They talk about modeling the way. We'll dive into these a little more. Inspire a shared vision, challenge the process, enable others to act, and encouraging the heart. So when you hear model the way, what do you think about? Why is that important to a leader? What is the?
I guess basically what you've decided are your actual procedures or whatever's in your handbook, and what you actually told your employees or your staff actually be the model that you speak that you are.
Do what you say you're going to do.
Yeah, yeah. I guess there was a better way to say that, huh?
Yeah. That's fine. That's a good example.
I also think that, people will imitate you when they're working for you. And so if you're calm and relaxed, people will be calm and relaxed with you, whereas if you're stressed out and angry, it'll create more tension. So I feel like modeling the way is like being responsible for how everybody else acts, because it's based on your own personality.
Yes.
That's a good example, because I remember at Northrop Grumman we had like the big vice president come down, and one of the things she said was have an attitude that others want to catch, and that always stuck with me. Yeah.
Yeah. And people watch more than leaders think. I've realized some leaders are just totally not aware of how much people look at their face when they walk in the door or online or what have you, and read into it. Like, oh no, they're stressed. What's happening with the company? Or it means a lot. Any other thoughts?
Modeling the way is a demonstration of integrity. So if I say do it, do something, and then I do something else, that immediately sets up a tension, should I say, between the model behavior and the prescribed behavior, and it shows that there's a lack of integrity there.
Yep. People lose trust. Yep. So these authors will focus on values, making sure you're clear on your values. So when I do a long program where we use this, I ask, how many of you can name? You don't have to actually name them, but right now, how many of you can name your top 3 values? I mean, you might kind of know them, but can you name them? Yeah. Anybody? See, it's amazing. So you can, good for you. And I take people through the process of just really making sure leaders that they have their values, and reflect on whether they are aligned to the organization they're in or the team, and then you want to live your values. You want to model them, and what you say should be what you do, the decisions you make, and things like that. Like I work for a company that really believes in work-life balance, and we get every Friday off, and
that really
it's
exists.
part of your health. Seraphic, and we get every other Friday off, and then you have your leader. When I got there, I still had my bad workaholic habits, and I would work past 5. And one of the executives took me aside, and he said, "Don't do that. You're modeling the wrong behaviors, and don't work. We got to plan a meeting in there. You free Friday?" And I go, "I could be free." "No, that's your Friday off." It's that they speak to that and they believe in it. And we have some now, that are working on their Fridays, and it's like, now you start to see others working on their Fridays.
But do you think that's because your company's fully staffed and has the resources to actually not overwork the current staff that's there?
Yeah, I mean, we were founded on that principle too.
Yeah.
So we built around that world. To make
I mean, it's just kind of how the whole develops, that there's not enough staff or resources to go around to actually implement or execute the strategy that the whole company came up with, but they forgot about the factor that they needed resources.
Yeah, I mean, that's really was your value, and your people are just making money, you know, is it, or
You see,
success?
we worked at the PwC in London, and they used to kick us out of the office at 5 p.m. sharp.
Oh,
So the partner would just walk around and just literally just empty the office,
Oh,
but
good.
for all the wrong reasons. Because the overtime starts at 5 p.m.
That's the beauty
Kind
of
a
Europe.
different value. Oh, the pocket value.
And I have a great example on this one. I worked with a tech team who were trying to kind of, have a strategic conversation about how to support people at work-life balance. And we had a full day of strategic meeting, and at lunchtime, the top guy at the table said, "You're not going anywhere. We will keep discussing." And I was like, "What are you guys discussing?" They're like, "Having work-life balance, right?" So they wouldn't take a break. They wouldn't let themselves out of the room because they were busy
That's so
discussing
ironic.
work-life balance. So I mean, that's very much moving the way. And I said, "Don't you find this is ironic? Don't you think you should be taking this lunch break?" So I can very much relate to what you're saying.
Yeah.
Sometimes people are understaffed, but sometimes it's the top team driving the agenda. We're not going anywhere. We're not having lunch. We're not going outside. We're not taking a bathroom break. We're discussing work-life balance, right? This is serious.
And if this is a top value of your company, like work-life balance, and your leaders are modeling the way, you're gonna make it work as best as you can. You're gonna have a more loyal, healthy team than when they do have to put in a little extra time now and then. They will, and they don't mind it, and they don't resent it.
You're just literally the first company I ever said. I mean, everybody says it. Like they've always put that, on their values on the website. But I mean, does it really happen? No. I mean, you're literally the first person I ever heard say that was actually real.
Right, yeah. I mean, we're not 100%. We always
Yeah, I
strive
mean,
towards
nobody's
some
perfect,
groups
but,
still
like-
work a little too hard, our marketing,
You guys are farther than the average bear.
Yeah, and you see it in the decisions. That's one reason I took the job. I mean, I could see that their practices, their infrastructure supported those values, and so did the things they said we did and prioritized. And I
The
still
challenge
see it.
is if you have a company stated that we're, focused on work-life balance, and then right out of the box, and, people notice this, right out of the box, it's clear that that's not true. Now you have a situation where any new employee is gonna not trust anything that they're told, because right off the bat,
They see,
we said this is one of our values, and yet it's not supported. When you have values, but you don't support them,
You remind me of something though, because like some companies do really kind of offer work-life balance, but they work the crap out of you and they give you this time off, or they do something extra during the year to like make everybody feel good, or help them relax or whatever, and then they consider that work-life balance, but it's opposite of what you guys are describing.
Yeah, it's so much is in the mindset of the leader. If they're really genuine about what they're saying, then it's not just a showcase example. Yeah. So the authors talk about clarifying your values and aligning actions. Inspire a shared vision. Well, that one doesn't feel so important, does it? But yeah. And when I've done many like 360s where you get feedback, around the leader. Is everybody here at 360?
Yeah, I did one.
Yeah. So you actually have the direct reports and the peers and the superiors and maybe customers even evaluate the leader. And very few come out strong in vision. Yet it's so important. Why?
Well, it's kind of like the railroad strike. You could have shut the economy down. So, sometimes, most of the times, it's because the other result is going to be catastrophic or not. They don't want to have that other, result from the vision that they all have. Like, so the management obviously had one vision, and the actual workers actually had another. I mean, they had 0 personal days. They had vacation, but 0 personal days. And then they also the company would show them quarterly how much money they were making hand over fist, but not giving them raises and not giving them additional benefits, so that kind of,
So given, like, if you think though, that's different, smaller vision, but what about the overall, like, direction of the company? Maybe that's a part of that, I guess, too, but, setting that vision and,
If everyone understands it, then they're all working toward the same vision, and it makes it much easier to achieve it.
yeah.
I struggle with,
So, yeah, make
Sorry.
it real clear,
yeah, I like the idea of the vision. I struggle with creating it. That makes sense, because like I have like a personal vision, like I know how much money I want to make and how many hours I want to work, but by leading a company, like, is it a 3-year mission? Is it a 5-year plan? Like, I don't know that, like, how to create that vision that's inspirational. Like, I need to see examples, I guess.
If you have time, you gotta watch Simon Sinek. You've seen that, the Golden Circle.
The why.
Yeah, the why. You've seen that. Yeah, that really helps you understand because
I struggled with that. With why do I do photography, and I really couldn't. Like, why am I doing this for my
why are you
clients?
passionate? Why does it get you up in the morning? How does it impact?
It's a hard.
Because you're creating everlasting moments.
I'm creating.
With a picture.
Yeah.
I'll be your visionary.
Yeah.
I just watched a podcast though that they were talking about entrepreneurship,
Uh-huh.
and they said that that's the first thing that you have to understand before you become an entrepreneur is
Yeah.
why you're doing it. And I never thought about it that way either until I listened to that podcast.
Yeah.
Purpose.
It gives you purpose, yeah. It gives the people you hire
Well,
to
my
be a
pur-
part of that.
My purpose right now is just to support my family. So, like, growing into a bigger company, like, I know it needs to have a bigger vision, and I think that's what I'm sort of like stuck on.
And it's gotta be genuine, right?
Yeah,
It's gotta
exactly.
be-
You can't just say, oh, I want to like feed 1 million people. Like, I gotta figure something out.
Well, he just gave you a good one.
I think a shared vision is important, because when workers can connect their daily work with the company vision or company purpose, that increases engagement.
Yes.
Right? And so unless you make the vision really clear, the purpose really clear, it's hard for workers every day to feel like they're contributing toward the bigger purpose.
Yes.
And
It's like a tribe.
And along those lines as well, it's really important for empowerment, because otherwise the management would have to direct every action instead of just empower workers to do what they have to do for the business.
And that's been one of my biggest struggles, because the prior leadership, they had to call for everything.
Right.
No matter if it's
Yeah.
to change a pencil out or whatever, I don't care what it is. Something's on my need, I'm like, no, you're a line leader. If you need to shut the line down, shut the line, you don't have to call me. Just tell me, give me a heads up, but I mean, it's ridiculous for everything.
And that
And then
might-
finally he's trying to turn that table,
And that might also be a responsibility issue as well.
you know.
If there is no shared vision, then the employees tend to shift responsibility towards the
Correct,
manager.
and then they have to make all the
Yeah.
decisions and everything, so, yeah, it's taken me about 6 months to get past that, now it's almost, I'm not worried about leaving now. And I've only been there a year, because they know, and
Fridays
same
off.
thing you mentioned, you mentioned something awesome about that, the way people act and all that, it's just, yeah, he was a yeller, and he did by force, his leadership.
Yeah.
And so his theatrics and all that, and he get overwhelmed and he get all excited, and I'm just so calmly like, you're not upset? I was like, no, things happen. Let's just move forward and learn from it.
Yeah.
It's like totally different, so.
Yeah.
I think what I haven't been hearing people say is that, if you're gonna have a vision, it has to not just do with the leadership, it has to do with the people that are working on the team. They have to understand, okay, what is it, how does this benefit them? Cause I don't have any incentive to work on buying you a new car.
Mm-hmm.
But if I can see that the work that I'm doing enables me to help my team do better, it enables me to have better opportunities myself because my organization is growing. Those types of things. Okay, so what's the buy-in for me? What's the benefit for me?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a great shift, because I think years ago, a company could say, our mission is to kind of, make a lot of money, and everybody's like, yay. I think the big shift in our understanding of mission and vision is that it should be inclusive of other people. And I think going back to your story, it's okay to have a personal, very kind of emotional story behind it. This is where it started. And that's kind of, that's interesting, that gets attention, that's emotional.
Yeah.
Then the next question is, why would I be with you? And there's got to be an answer to this question. It has to be inclusive. It cannot just be about a founder, the owner, even though this story, there's a place for this story in the mission and the vision, but then the question is, how do you serve community? How do you serve people around you? And I think that's the interesting shift in leadership. It's getting more and more human, more and more inclusive, more and more servant.
And Simon Sinek says the profit's your result of everything else and not like your overall why there shouldn't be. Good. Yeah, inclusive, making people part of it. My company is very much, you feel that our leader is a good visionary. I'm not trying to sell my company, but it's a good example of a lot of good, effective leadership. And our CEO is just, he wants to save the world from the carbon imbalance and save human health. He's a triple board certified doctor, so you sort of trust him, and he focuses on intrinsic. And he's starting all these nonprofits that are aligned, so he's a very believable, and we all feel like part of the tribe to make it all happen, to make a difference in the world. And there's a story about the bricklayer that was, doing a really good job laying the bricks, and somebody asked him what his job was to make it brief, and or ask his colleague, and he said, I'm just I'm trying to get this cement in, but then asked the next guy that seemed to be doing everything so perfect, enthusiastic, and he said, I'm building the most beautiful cathedral in the town, or something like that. So he really believed in the vision. Yeah. And here's the enlisting others in the common appeal to shared aspiration. And challenge the process. Any thoughts about why that's important?
Because like the same thing that's good for today may not be good for 5 years from now.
Yeah, we can't do things the way we always have.
Right. We expect a different result anyway.
That's where innovation comes.
Yes.
If you're challenging the status quo and how things are always done, that's how change happens.
Yeah. Kind of keep up with the times and the competition, and you grow.
So 98% of what we do is habit. And a good portion of the habit that we have, we don't even realize that we have the habit. For instance, do you think when you brush your teeth in, out, you just, you run that little program and your teeth get brushed, you don't even think about what it is that's going on. How many times have I been driving down the road and I don't remember the last 10 miles?
Oh, yeah.
Did I run off the road and hit a tree? No, it's just that, the driving, the monitoring, the traffic and all that stuff is on automatic, it's all habitual. So I have to be able to identify, I don't have to be able to identify the habit. What I have to identify is that, I like this part of my life, I like this is working, this is not working. So instead of having this not working, I identify what would it look like for it to be something that I do like, and I form a new habit. I intentionally form a new habit that creates different results than what I had, and eventually the energy of the new habit will overcome the energy of the old, and it will dissipate and go away on its own.
Yeah, cool. I can apply a lot of
This actually is a double-edged sword, in my opinion, and I think it suffers from survivorship bias, because a lot of businesses get destroyed because of changing the process for the sake of change,
good point.
and
You have to be careful about
destroying what good they had. And then we don't know about them because they went bankrupt like many years ago. Nobody remembers them, but everybody knows the successful examples of change because they survived, obviously. But the thing is, we don't and we actually know that the percentage of those surviving businesses might be really low. So it's really, so it should never, you should challenge the process for the sake of improving it, but only if it's really necessary and it really brings the improvement. So it cannot be done like on its own or just separate from everything else, basically.
And that's what a lot of people these days, because of that, I think, is to take like pilot things, do it small scale, try it out before you do it large scale.
Ventures, yeah. Ventures. Try it in a like confined place or like a separate company. See if it works and then grow it. So if you can prove the concept, then only then you should basically make it work for the entire business.
Would you call it survivor syndrome?
Survivorship bias.
Survivorship.
Yeah,
I think,
that's
sorry, to go back to that.
Oh, sorry.
I think often leaders are not aware of the challenging the process piece of their people. Leaders, have gotten to a certain position because of clear vision and maybe persuasive skills and good work ethic and all that. But their people may not feel free to challenge the process.
Yeah.
So as leaders, we need to create a welcome space for our folks to challenge. So I want to encourage everyone to look in the topic of psychological safety, which is really becoming more and more important these days. Psychological safety is the idea that people feel included and welcome to learn and try and fail and contribute, as well as challenge the status quo without the fear of being embarrassed, marginalized, or punished for failing or for challenging the status quo. I think this is a big topic these days and worth looking into, but it's hard to get to where employees feel free to challenge the status quo. And so leaders, we need to be aware that it's maybe not the same story with everyone as it is for us. We may feel secure challenging, but others may not. So our role is to help create a safe space.
Yeah, so important. And that's one where you see a lot of people talk to them, welcome your feedback, and as soon as somebody gets feedback, they get jumped on or, or something, and it's a, yeah, it is so important. Thank you for bringing up that psychological
safety.
Yeah.
There's a good book called Paradigms by Joel Barker that addresses this whole concept of understanding that the current way of doing things solves 95% of the problems, but the ones that are really important are the ones, the 5% that are not being solved, and the difficulty of coming producing a new idea that is potentially going to replace the other, but it solves some of that 5%. So Paradigms by Joel Barker.
Okay.
If anyone's interested in safety, I have blog posts and videos and stuff on my website on that topic.
Oh, great.
Here's my card.
You gonna spread? Okay.
Oh,
I'll take one of those.
Okay. The enable others to act.
Thank you.
So I'm just going to give you a little more about what this is. Of course, we've talked some about empowering, making people part of the vision, but it's also the building trust piece comes here, making sure there's good relationships with the team, with individuals, not just being directive, but really building that trust through. And clearing obstacles from people, things like that is all part of this. And the developing confidence, like Corey, is that?
Yes, Corey.
Yeah, like how much they worked with you and helped you develop and build your confidence and things like that. They prioritize that time. So any other thoughts around enable others? It's a pretty rich chapter. Sake of time, we'll move on. Encourage the heart. This is what coming, like your celebrations, reward and recognition. celebrating values, victories. That builds the spirit of community. I mean, that could be also just from like a manager catching somebody doing something well and saying good job, up to something more formal. Any thoughts around either of these two before we move on? Renee, just real quick, this one's again Dare to Lead. She has some other good books out too. She wasn't one of the first ones to talk about vulnerability, but to make it more popular, I would say probably. And why do you think being vulnerable as a leader is important?
I think it helps build the honesty component. Like if you're truthful about how you're feeling or what's going on, you know, your employees will feel that you're being an honest person and you're straightforward.
Yeah.
And we make mistakes too. I mean, all the time. I'm still learning the business, so I'm not scared to say, hey, back off.
Yeah, good for
Let's
you.
go for it as a team and figure it out.
Makes you human, makes you more relatable and
Yeah.
trustworthy. Yeah. So it can also, I don't know about vulnerability. We're talking about the people having a voice and being able to speak up, feeling safe. That makes people feel safer. You know? Yeah. So she also talks about having that difficulty to start those hard conversations. To have those, if you're vulnerable, that helps too, because then it really opens up, gets dialogue going. That's something with our company's not so good at. We're such a nice culture, caring culture, that a lot of my themes and work I do is getting people braver to speak up. Not that people get slammed down or anything, but they're just so polite. And lowering your defenses, because a lot of leaders apparently just really feel defensive anytime they feel challenged in any way. So just being more open, more vulnerable, more listening. Anybody add anything to that that's read this or just the general theme?
I think this connects really well to the previous point 3, which is challenge the process.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, somebody tells you you're not selling kind of well enough, you're not doing something well enough, and you're saying, no, we've done it for ages. Like, we're the experts. And you're just building up a wall and you're not really listening to what other people are telling you. And you cannot grow from this unless you say, oh, wait a minute, so we're not that good. And somebody tells you, you're not. There's so much more you can do, and there's so much you cannot see. So you cannot, this hurts. It sucks. Right? Because I mean, it's vulnerable, it's hard, it means you have to start all over. And you have to overcome this feeling, and you cannot move any further unless you do. So lowering your defenses means, oh, this is gonna hurt. I'm gonna take the punch,
And these are already sort of a lot of leaders. I've asked in my leadership classes of all levels, like, how many of you ever feel or have ever felt like an imposter as a leader? Like, and they basically maybe all but one raise their hand in big groups, because sometimes you feel like you gotta fake it till you make it and things, and so then we're asking you to be vulnerable on top of that already. It's a scary feeling you have. But, accepting shame and showing empathy, of course. That's an interesting piece she goes into a lot too. It's all part of the vulnerability, really. Jim Collins, really setting that bar high, says, good is the worst enemy of great. Your example. And team building. Think of a time, we don't have a whole lot of time left, so just think of a time real quick where you were on a team that you loved. And what was it that made it a good team? I just want to get a couple examples of some of these.
I guess for me, Working at Balbo, it kind of was two things. When I got there, I really didn't understand that the Swedish were just a little nicer. They were very polite, you know, and nothing's wrong with that, but being in procurement and I have a supplier that's a poor performance, not delivering on time, bad quality. I mean, I watched the director talk to them like, come on kids, line up, let's go get our lunch box. I mean, very nice, just, you know, they gave us a crappy fishbone chart, but he sat and wrote on the whiteboard for them what they should do. And my thing was, is are they really qualified to be our supplier now? Because you shouldn't have to tell them what to do. They accepted the contract, and then it leads into the ownership that you need to take once you are in the position of faking it till you make it, because that whole imposter syndrome feels horrible. It causes anxiety, you get stressed out, you feel like you're not learning quick enough, or you're sitting in a room and you don't have anything to add because you feel like you say something and it sounds stupid. But I always hit the red button, and I've had people tell me, well, maybe you shouldn't say that, or you're too aggressive. Maybe you would have gotten that promotion. But I still held the value of if that is the case, then I don't belong here, because that's not me.
And it's a balance, and it's how you do it.
Yeah.
And things like that too. So how does that impact a team? What's
You know, the times that I've done large scale photo shoots, you know, what really helps is a good producer who's like kind of takes the role of keeping everybody like together in alignment. And one thing that she did really well was she kind of anticipated everybody's needs before they knew they needed them. Like they had snacks there, water's there. She was always checking in with the client and with me about what was, you know, what we needed, making sure that things were getting delivered on time. So I feel like, you know, even though I'm the lead photographer on these bigger productions, it's really about the producer, and when I work with, is particularly talented, and it's almost like a motherly figure of like taking care of everybody. Sometimes at the sacrifice of herself, you know, physically. But you know, we always liked working with her because we knew she could count on her, and we knew that we would all be taken care of, and everything just goes so smoothly.
so that helps. All this stuff, all these tips we've learned in leadership really impact the team dynamics in a big way too. So I love that forecasting needs and checking in with people and all that. So important. And then keep thinking about when you leave here, what can you do to give a sense of team? Has anybody heard of the Tuckman's team model? I think it was important to share too. So the theory is basically anytime a new team forms, or you get a new leader, or you get somebody leaves and you hire somebody new, any sort of change on the team or a new team forming maybe for a project or something, you're going to go through these stages. So the team forms, or sort of the honeymoon, get to know you period, get to know you better period, and then you go through a storming period. It could be really brief, or it could be long and drawn out. And a lot of what you could do as a leader or a consultant or facilitator, it can help them move through that storming set part really quickly, and we'll talk about some of those ideas. So storming, what do you think that means?
Conflict.
Could be actual conflict, or lighter, like arguments, or it could be just the lighter, just figuring each other out. What were you gonna say?
Yeah, just conflict and maybe some missed processes or missteps in processes that are growing pains. So as you're building out this team and their function, you might miss steps that you're learning to fill in.
Good, yeah.
Also, you're understanding how leaders actually work and how they operate.
Yeah.
And you might not like it. It might not be in the value you saw in the forming because of the front some put on.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, oh no, that's not that person. That's not the vision we have.
Breaking old habits,
Yeah.
trying to implementing new procedures and processes that aren't taken too well.
If people have to settle in that. Yeah.
Does it always follow this trend, or does it sometimes hit storming and has to go back to forming before it can?
Oh, true. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, true. There's probably
Different
Like
peaks and
most
valleys.
Well, I think sometimes it may cause some of that tension because I think it's a clear way that identifies who are the weakest links on the team, you know, so then how do you handle that to both make it inclusive, although you know that person is lacking some of what you need in your department, and then also develop them, or at least give them the opportunity to do so.
To watch that period and
Yeah.
figure out.
I mean, because I'm thinking about that now at work.
People under stress are gonna show that side more.
Yeah, everybody I'm not used to that. I mean, I've been in quiet places before, but it's like a morgue. I have to walk around here and there just to make sure there's signs of life in there. Everybody has their doors shut. There's no name tags on the door.
They're quietly storming.
Yeah, and it's because they're all so busy. They haven't had the resources. Then when we had COVID, and they haven't learned how to work together again.
Okay, but then if a leader can help get through that, then the norms start getting set faster. You know, you could have even a session with them saying, let's set rules of engagement. Like, you know, as a leader, I do expect you guys, if you're going to be late, let me know and call me. You know, things as simple as that can really help people go smoother. And then so. How do you as a team, if you can involve the team in making these decisions too, it helps with buy-in, of course. Like, how do you as a team want to handle getting back to people on email or phone calls? You know, if you get one, do you want to do 24 hours, 48? You know, and a decision's made, and then those expectations are set, so somebody's not going to get mad if they're used to their team members getting back to them in 10 minutes, and it's 24 hours because the group's decided 24 hours is okay. And they were part of that. I mean, simple things like that can really help get you into the norming and really understanding the processes and having time maybe to discuss and input, tweak it. Other examples, then you almost get to high performing, and then somebody new joins, and then you go back. So here's some things. I'd love to have time to get your ideas. If we could stay around a few minutes, if there's room to take it and discuss. But something that said is just really collaborating goals together, celebrating steps along the way. If some managers they set goals and they give them to their team versus having them part of it. I don't know, some people think, oh, goals, that's in my job description, but usually there's a higher level goal, something more exciting that's new that you can improve or something change that year. Celebrating, like encouraging the heart, celebrating different benchmark points or performance, team is a whole success or an individual's, even work anniversaries. Setting norms, which we just talked about.
Would you call it, you said some managers hand out goals versus, like you said, in a way like sitting together
to develop them together.
Okay.
Yeah. So that there's buy-in. Yeah. And then just the simple, having these fun times together where you might have your work hat off more and you can really connect together more. Obvious. Even like do something good for the community together. It's or if you've heard of like rope course type events where they, there's a strategic approach to the fun. Where we're working at, like she talked about, looking at dynamics during the storms and working through them. If somebody any problems. Regular meetings, one-on-one, people need to gather or have a place where they can talk. And if you have preset one-on-ones, for example, they know they have a time where you're going to listen, and you get a remote. And having a part of selecting new team members. Communications. Even if you don't have any updates, tell them that. That's so key, especially if the organization's going through a lot of change. And just a big reminder about diversity, respecting the different styles, modeling the way around that can really build trust, collaboration, and a better team. And now just to leave the room thinking about if there's anything today that you can take away and start applying with others.